Where's the countdown? Why isn't it countdown?
It did. I
Oh,
saw
I
it.
didn't even see it. It didn't show it to me. Okay, well, here we go. Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today, Ely Delaney. Welcome to the show, Eli.
It's my pleasure to come hang out with you today.
Yeah, it was so cool that we got connected through my production company, but we already knew each other
Mhm.
from Success Champions. So that
Yeah.
was that
Yeah,
was
I thought it
super
was
fun.
funny when I got the notification of, "Hey, would you like to be a guest on the show?" I'm like, "Hey, wait a minute, I know her. Yes, of course I would."
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, so here we are. First question I love asking people is what were the values and beliefs you were raised with that contributed to you becoming who you became as a young adult and then eventually into where you are now?
Oh, um, I think more than anything else, work ethic is like what working hard, making sure that you are doing the best you can with what you got. And if there's one thing that I got from my parents, that's it right there.
That's so interesting because a lot of my guests say they got work ethic, like work
Mhm.
hard and
Yeah.
you will be successful. And that's not necessarily true in my experience now.
No, it's not necessarily true from a standpoint of if you work hard, you will have success specifically. But if you don't work hard, you're not going to have success. You're going to have to push yourself further than the average person. And a lot of people give up or they don't try. They don't try to level up their game of what they're doing, whatever it is, and they use the excuse of, oh well, good enough is good enough. Like that's a phrase that I see a
Mhm.
lot in the last few years, and it really, that one rubs me wrong because it's like there's a point where yes, they're not wrong, but then good enough is like when you have like, here's the beginning and here's what you really want. Is good enough when you get it like 80% and you just couldn't quite get it to the 100% of what you wanted? Or is the good enough, I did 20%, that's good enough?
Right.
That's where I think that people let themselves off a little too easy with that phrase. That's why I don't like it. It's not that I don't understand the concept. Like for me, it's that goes with the stuff of shoot for the moon. If you land among the stars, you're still
Right.
okay, something to that effect. I get that, and I'm totally cool with that. But I think people use that as an excuse to let themselves just let the world happen around them instead of doing the best they truly can.
That's so interesting. And I love that you just created that distinction
Mhm.
between those two interpretations because yes, you could get caught up in the super high achievers that we hang out with,
Yeah.
get into that perfectionism and never release anything because it's not good enough.
Right. Yeah. And I
And
was I was one of those
yeah,
for
me
for
too.
many many years. Yeah.
Yeah. And then right, trying uh pushing when something feels uncomfortable.
Hmm. Yeah. I think like for me personally, I'm a big fan of um and I wish I could remember where oh, it was actually an exercise group that I'm part of because I've gotten into some stuff more recently. Exercise was not part of my world growing up necessarily, and as I've gotten older, I'm like, you know what? No, there's one of the things that I have been lacking. I do need to work on. And the cool thing about the guy who runs this program, he's like, um, do not compare yourself to me or anybody else in this group. It is
Yeah.
you versus you.
Right.
Do the best you can, not to the point of hurting yourself. You're not competing with me. I am an Olympian. You are not.
Right.
Don't try. But that means try to do the best you can and you'll do just fine. And that's I like that because it's you versus you. And
Right.
like for me personally, I'm not a super competitive person. I got into one sport in my entire life that I actually got involved with, which is archery. And the great thing I love about archery is there's a lot of different things I love about it, but one of the things I love from that standpoint is what somebody else does has zero effect on me. If I shoot well, it's because I had a great day. If I win a competition, it's because I did well that day. But that doesn't affect of did somebody else play better than me, or did somebody shoot better than me, or did somebody do something like trip me, because you don't touch each other. None of
Right.
that is involved. It's like I do the best I possibly can. And by the way, I've had some times where I've done tournaments where I did the best I could, and I had a really really bad day, and I still came in first. because everybody
Uh-huh.
else just happened to have a worse bad day, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And it's a good place to be because, you know, you are trying your best. That's all we can ask for, you know,
Yeah.
and that's why I
That
love that.
in I am a big fan of archery, and nobody has ever, I can't remember anybody bringing up archery. I did it
Okay.
at camp and I freaking loved it, but then
So much
I haven't done it since, but except back in April,
fun. Okay.
almost a year ago, I was at a friend visiting a friend in California, and she had a target in her backyard. And
Mm-hmm.
we went out there and we're shooting, and I did really well. She's like, "Wait, you haven't done this in years, like since you were a kid?" I'm like, "No, but I
Nice.
just
You got
love
a
it."
good
Like,
talent for it. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I need to find somewhere that I
Okay.
could go and maybe take lessons or do it on the regular. It's
Okay.
so much fun.
Yeah, we need to talk because I can help you find some of those kind of places. I got
Okay.
when I got into it. I've only been into it for 8 9 years now. For most of my life, I was not into it. I did it in high school when they run you through like every different
Yes.
sport you can get into for like one day, and I don't think I hit the target once, and I shot like three arrows because they only had like three bows between 30 people,
Uh-huh.
something like that. But I got into it. I fell in love with it. For me, it's my meditation time. It's my Zen time. And
Yes.
one of the things I love to do is if it's the weather's right, there's outdoor ranges you can go to and you just walk the course. It's like you go golfing. A lot of people go
Right.
golfing. It's kind of the same thing, only with a stick and a pointy object.
Yeah.
It's a lot more fun in my aspect, and it's so relaxing.
Yes. Yes. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
That's a different
going
conversation.
going back to the pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to achieve things that you say that you want.
Hmm.
And I think like a lot of people slink back because it's like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be this hard, or I didn't think it was
Yeah.
going to be this much work, or I just don't know the right people, or whatever reason they come up with
Hmm.
for not achieving. I think it all comes down to it feels uncomfortable. And I don't, and it feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar. And I don't like that. So I'm going to go back to what I know and stay in my tiny little box.
Yeah. I think we all go through that,
Mm-hmm.
and in different aspects of life, whether it be personal, business, whatever. For me personally, I have you and I talked about this actually the other day. I'm making kind of a shift of who my target audience is and how I run my business, and a couple of things that I'm doing differently are very outside of the comfort zone for me for a couple of different reasons. Because I had the same niche I've been working with for over 15 years. These are the
Mm-hmm.
same people, easy for me to find. It's like when I say who I work with, it's like, oh, you go to these particular events, that's where they hang out. It's real simple. Now I'm like, okay, where do I find these new people that I'm looking at? And that's a scary part in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with that aspect, I'm changing even how I'm marketing and how I'm connecting with people. And one of the things, as simple as silly as it sounds, my comfort zone has always been using Facebook as a marketing tool, and now I'm diving into LinkedIn quite a bit. I
Mm.
don't like LinkedIn, and I have avoided it like the plague for years. I have account, I have stuff posted on it, but I post and I leave, and that's it. And I'm like, no, I need
Uh-huh.
to change things for this stuff. As simple as that sounds, that's actually a very difficult hurdle to get over when you're stuck in your ways and you've been doing the same thing the same way for 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I have to do this thing differently. And we could go, on a business aspect. I mean, look at what's going on with AI right now. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
many people are fighting what's going on with it. And I mean, when it comes to, with AI, yeah, I grew up with watching Terminator. I'm scared as hell of some of that stuff. But the reality is it's not going anywhere. And for people that are saying it's horrible, you have to avoid it like the plague and all this kind of stuff, guess what? You're going to be left behind. So you have to figure out, you don't have to embrace it and fall down the rabbit hole with it, but you have to embrace, I have to figure out something with it. I need to utilize it and what works best for me. So, like, I have a different way that I'm using it than what the masses are doing, because that's a way that keeps with my authenticity and helps me deal with the things that I have against it. And my clients are kind of in the same boat with that, which is great because now I can communicate with them better.
Yeah.
But still, no, it's not going anywhere. So the world evolves. We have to go outside of our comfort zone, and these are just a couple examples off the top of my head, because these are things I've been talking about a lot lately, is you figure out what is the best way that you can handle that thing, and make that shift, even if it's in small bite-sized chunks.
Yes. And I will throw in that I am being very polite to AI so that when it takes over, it remembers who was nice to it.
So do you say please and thank you to your
Yes.
Siri? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Cause it,
not to Siri, but to ChatGPT
okay.
and
Yeah.
some of the other ones. But yes, maybe I should consider being
Yeah.
nicer to
I got
Siri
my
as well
Google,
instead of
I got my Google and my Alexa. And yeah, I catch myself saying, "Oh, thank you." So it's all good.
right.
It's all
Yeah,
good.
it is. It is. So you mentioned that you are going through a transition now with your
Mhm.
clients,
Yeah.
and uh, you had um, you had gone through so you're some personal and some business
Hmm.
transitions
Yeah. So,
where you were saying everything was fine, but I was not fine at all.
yeah. So, just like, I mean, 2019 was my best year ever. I was traveling across the country, speaking all over places, having a blast, meeting all kinds of fun people. And, 2020 hit, obviously, the world shut down, that was a hit in itself, but I was okay with that.
Uh-huh.
And then, fast forward towards the end of the year, my partner, who we'd been together for almost 30 years, she ended up developing a brain tumor.
Mm.
And there was a lot of personal angst going on in our relationship as well. And then that happened. And it was like, okay, I'm already trying to refigure out my business. And now this is happening. I ended up shutting down the business for about 4 months to take care of her. Um, and then you just got thing after thing after thing just hit. Fast forward a couple of years, she passed away a little over a year and a half ago, or about a year and a half ago. And I moved across the country, restarted my life, both personal and business. And it's a lot. It's funny.
Yes.
I've told people when I've gone through it, and I'm not going to go through all the details, but I went through enough of. I've shared details with people, and they're like, "All right, are you in therapy?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but I got some friends I definitely need to get a good steak dinner for." Uh, um,
They were your therapy.
they were my therapy, but the reality is that um, I came at it with the point of I don't have a choice but to just push through. And
Hmm.
so when people are like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm fine,"
Yeah.
because I had to be. I had no choice in the matter. And for me personally, I mean, there's definitely a lot going on inside my head that was not fun at all. Um, but I looked at it as these are the things I have to deal with, and it just is what it is.
You chose to do that
Mm-hmm.
because you said you didn't have a choice, but you actually did have a choice. You could have walked away. You could have broken down. You could have
Yeah.
responded differently than you did. So you did have a choice and you chose to keep it all together and convince yourself it was fine because you felt like that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that is an interesting look at it, because for me, that was, it was the right thing to do, and so therefore there wasn't another choice. It's like, okay, what, if I look at the other options, and that's the hard thing about stuff like that, when you get dealing with major trauma, major things going on, you
Yeah.
look at what are my choices here, and it's like, okay, I can put on the best face I possibly can and just make use of what I have, just push through it all, or I can crawl up in a little ball and do nothing. And it's like, when you look at that, some people will choose the second option, but
Mhm.
for me, I'm looking at, but that's not living. That's not. You got to move forward to get out of it. It's like, what is it? I think it was Winston Churchill said something, when you're going through hell, keep going. You
Yeah.
know, and I think that's a good way to look at it, because the choices that we have are going to be the things that get us through the other side. And that's
Hmm.
where, like, where I was, I mean, I was a basket case, but I did as much as I could to hold it together. And it was funny. I had some people that were really surprised that weren't close to me, but when they found out what happened, they're like, "Wow, I didn't realize what was going on."
Hmm.
And then I had some people that did know me, and they're like, "Yeah, you were a mess." And they could tell,
Right.
fast forward, I moved to Dallas a little over a year ago, and I've done a lot of personal work on getting my head back on straight. And I am night and day different than the way I was like a year ago. I mean, just it's funny because I can even look at videos of like podcasts and stuff like that, and I can see where I was holding it together
Hmm.
compared to the energy and the look in my eyes now. It is so different than what it was back then.
What are some of the things that you've done or that you did or that you are doing now? You mentioned working out,
Yeah.
but what are some of the other things that you did to help you, uh, get yourself back in a good place?
Okay. Yeah. So working out was one of them, and it was real simple because it was okay. This is something I can control. I'm not looking like I'm going to lose 100 pounds in the next 90 days or any of that kind of BS. I'm just like, no, I'm just going to be consistent. It's like,
Hmm.
just be consistent with something. It's like, it's that real simple thing is like everybody always talks about if you're in the worst case situation, just make your bed because you can be proud of making your bed that day.
Right.
Which is really funny because that's something I started doing too that I hadn't actually done before. I had never been a fan of that. I was like, why? What's the bother of doing that? You're going to just mess it up the next night anyway. And
Right.
so it's literally since I moved here, I've made my bed every day, and I worked out almost every day, and it's those things have helped. But on top of that, when it was all going through, before all that stuff happened, I had actually started studying Stoicism a little bit. And so I'd been kind of following it to some degree for a couple of years. And then I got deeper into it. And then when stuff really started happening, I don't even know what started or where it came to be, but I got into studying Bushido, which is the code of the samurai. And I ended up going down a completely different rabbit hole with that because it helped me think of things. And it's funny because you look at a lot of times it's like in military or more, I hate to use the term, but more like alpha group kind of stuff.
Hmm.
They have like they're really pushing their core values, which core values are super important, but the way they do it tends to be a little in your face a
Hmm.
lot of times, and
Hmm.
so I've never been a
Like
big fan of it.
dictator like.
Dictator like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I like that's a great term for it. And what ended up happening was I saw the way Bushido came to be. And if you think about samurai, back in their day, they were the most feared warriors in the world. But the difference with them, and this is why it appeals to me, because I'm not a violent kind of guy. I love archery, but I'm a target archer.
Right.
For me, it's meditation. It's not, for the hunt of the kill or any of that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
it's not about killing things. Same.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
I always tell like I got plenty of hunter friends. I'm like, I don't have a problem with it, but there's wonderful steakhouses. I don't need to do that kind of crap.
Right.
So, but for me, it's like what I found with what they do, the samurai do, is that they are or were. I mean, there's technically there are still some, from heritage, but they were the most feared warriors, but they were also very disciplined in what they did. And they looked at things from a very calming state. They weren't the in your face tyrant type. They were very calm and collected. And it was like, okay, what is it that kept them centered?
Hmm.
And their philosophies did that. And, they're the type of guys that, they chop you in half and then they'd apologize,
Yeah.
because they respected you as another human being and as a warrior. So that's the way they thought. And it was like, okay, this mindset as a whole appeals to me. It's like, how can we be respectful of each other? And the thing that really pushed me over the edge with them is two of the seven virtues are it's compassion, which compares to what I call kindness, and
Hmm.
respect. Those are two of the seven. And for me, those are my core values personally. The other ones are all important, but those two are the ones that stand the most. And I think that's where the world needs more of kindness and respect. It's like be kind to other people, show them respect. You don't have to like them, you don't have to agree with them, but show basic respect.
Right.
And when we do that, we come from a very different place and we can have a better conversation And for me, those things helped center me and get me back to, okay, just keep pushing forward. My stoicism side, one of the big things with the stoicism side was it's not about lack of emotion, it's about controlling your emotion. And that's how
Mhm.
their mindset is about that. A lot of times people think of stoicism as boring and cold and stuff like that. And it's not about that. It's about how do you control your emotions? Don't you let your emotions control you? Because so many people do that in today's world. They'll
Right.
like some of the silliest things will trigger them and they go completely off the wall where it's like, no, you don't like it, you don't have to like it, but keep your cool. And that was a big thing for me. It's like, okay, these bad things that are happening, this chaos in my life, I can't control that.
Right.
What I can control is the actions that I do to try to make it as good as I can. And so I just focused my energy as rock solid as I could on that.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on this show. And outside of it, in my coaching program, is about one, it's not about not having emotions. We all have
Mm-hmm.
emotions as
Yeah.
humans, and it's about feeling them
Mm-hmm.
and not letting them, like you said, like take control of you,
Right.
that you're responding to things instead of reacting. There's a difference.
Yes.
And then it's about how do you process them?
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to go back to when you were talking about Bushido, that it's similar to what I hear about martial arts. Like I've never
Mm-hmm.
practiced martial arts, but
Yeah.
it's the same. Once you have those skills, it's not like you go out and karate chop everybody and, because they pissed you off.
Right.
It's about being respectful and knowing when to engage.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever, in as far as I understand, the people who are really into practicing martial arts, it's not like they want to engage. They will only
Right.
engage when forced to.
Right. And that's where, I mean, there are some people that get into like the sports of MMA and things like that. But the mass majority of them, it's a matter of, and there's a great quote that comes from Eastern philosophy somewhere, and I don't remember where it came from exactly, but it's like, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a fight, in a war. And
Yeah.
that's the mindset behind it, is just being prepared, being ready for it. You don't want to ever have to use it.
Right.
And for me, it's like I'm not into the martial arts side. I mean, not that I'm opposed to it. I've actually had some interesting thoughts of potentially at some point getting into that. I got too many things going on right now to take up a new hobby,
Uh-huh.
and I don't even have time to do the archery as much as I'd like to yet right now. So, but it's a matter of how do we, like for me, it was a matter of like Bushido it was all about the philosophy, and it's about how do you just how do you react to the world around you, and how do you keep your values at the top and top. It's like integrity.
Yeah.
Integrity is one of the seven virtues as well. It's like you, even when you're stressed out and things are not looking good, and all the things are going on in the bank account has $20 in it, are you going to keep your integrity and take care of the people and sell? I'm a big fan of this one, is because, you and I both work in the coaching world. There's a lot of people that make a lot of really, really big promises that are just full of shit. And
Yeah.
they're like, no, that's not in integrity. And I would never do such a thing.
That's why it's so important to be aware of what your values are. And a lot of
Yes.
people are not. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know, like they'll say they value integrity or they value family or they
Mm-hmm.
value
Yeah.
of health. But when you look at their calendar or you look at how they're spending their time
Mm-hmm.
or how they're acting,
Right.
they're not acting in accordance with those values, one, or two, they haven't really sat down and thought about what are my values that I want to live by? How
Mm-hmm.
do I want to define myself? Who do I want to be?
Right.
And when you are clear on what those values are, and that's one of the things that we talk about in the Fuck Being Fine program, is that's one of the places we start is getting clear on what your values are
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
that you can then live into them. And no matter what situation comes up in front of you, you're living those values.
Yes. And it's really funny because I've noticed that the term of using core values has come up a lot just in like the last year. Like
Mm-hmm.
massive, it's a massive explosion of conversation, which is cool. And I think there's a lot of ways like figuring out what your core values are, both on a personal side and on a business side, and the two may not always be the same overall. They will probably mesh mostly for the big part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even like for me, it was like I didn't realize those were my core values until I literally saw them in words. When I saw them on there's a really cool poster that I have downstairs of the seven virtues, and
Mm-hmm.
when I saw the words, I'm like, that's it right there. Those are the things that are the most important to me.
Yeah.
And I'd been living that. I'd already been like those things. It's like I'd have conversations about, you know what, we just need to be kind to each other. We just need to you show kindness, smile at the barista when you get your coffee, laugh, and make them laugh a little bit because they probably had a bad day with a bunch of people that weren't caffeinated enough.
Right, right,
You
right,
know,
right. They were.
show respect. You don't have to like somebody. If you have disagreement over something, that's fine. It's like the guy might be a narcissist. That's okay. Smile, say hi, shake their hand, and walk away.
Right.
There's little things like that. And when I saw it, that's when I'm like, that's it. That's what is important to me. And so that's what started me down that particular rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got going down there, I realized how much deeper it really went and what the philosophies were behind it so much more than, okay, let's show kindness, let's show respect. It was so much deeper than that. And now that's become a very big part of my persona. And I talk about it all the time and I teach it to my clients. And even some of my business stuff is melding more into those core values and the philosophies behind Bushido because it gave me a way to center myself and to
Mm.
be confident. It's like, okay, there's all kinds of crazy crap going on and chaos. I mean, I'm still recovering from all that stuff that happened, but
Absolutely.
I feel like, a year later, a year ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And a year later, I'm confident. I'm happy. I'm doing well. There's still stuff, voices going on in the head,
Yeah.
but I'm doing so much better than I was before. And it's because I'm like, okay, let me find my path. Let me find that North Star and just stick to it. It's going to be wavy.
Right.
There's no getting around that,
Yeah.
but follow the path anyway. And once you do that, it just makes life a little bit easier.
Yes, absolutely. It's about following. And you mentioned earlier about consistency. It's
Mhm.
not going to be a straight shot.
Yeah.
And as long as you are consistent, and if you're talking about being at the gym, you miss a day, you miss a week,
Mhm.
whatever, you get back on the path and you
Yeah.
keep going and you're consistent. And it's that consistency
Mhm.
that brings you the results you're
Yeah.
looking for.
Well, and let me say something real quick because you just brought up something. You said going to the gym. So I don't even go to the gym.
Okay.
Because for me, going to the gym is more of a trauma thing. It's like, gym rats and big bulky dudes and make fun
Yeah.
of you and me and my fat gut and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, that's not cool for me. So it's a matter of, again, don't don't look at the excuse, look at how do we figure that out. And
Yeah.
so what I did, I found a program that is something I can do from home, uses resistance bands so it doesn't take up any space. And I have videos on my phone. So I just
Hmm.
take out my phone and I download videos every day and I watch it. It still gives me the same workout. It busts my butt. I have a hard time standing every Tuesday because Monday's leg day. But that's the thing is we have to think solution oriented. And
Yes.
like as an entrepreneur, I try to stay that way because entrepreneurs solve problems for a profit. That's what we do.
Hmm.
So my brain is always looking at what's the solution? How can we make it work? It's not we can't make it work because we don't like this thing. It's like,
Right.
no, I don't like the gym. I'm not going to go to the gym. That's going to be too inconsistent. It's going to cost me money. I have to get up. I have to go. Blah blah blah. I was like, no, let's eliminate all the problems. You can do it right here. I get up. I do my thing. And that's the kind of the mindset we have to do to get over the kind of chaos that can throw us for a loop. It's like, okay, all this stuff is going on. What's one thing that I can do that give me a step forward? And
Yes.
that's all I focused on.
That's such
That's
great
what.
advice. What's the one thing I can do
Hmm.
today
Yeah.
that can move me forward, keep me centered, whatever it is, and the solution focused.
Yeah.
That's fantastic because right, we live in a world that tends to be problem focused.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole rabbit hole we
Yeah,
could
we
go
won't
down
go
to.
down that today,
And for some
but
reason, I'm saying rabbit hole a lot today. I don't know what the
because
meaning of
Zen
that is.
rabbit.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
that's
happens.
it. That's it. All right,
Yeah.
I'll buy
Yeah.
that.
Solution focused. And you mentioned earlier about relying on your friends as your therapy kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so again, it comes up again a lot in the show. You don't have to do this alone.
Right.
And if you can't see the solution because you're too in your head or your situation is
Mm-hmm.
so overwhelming to you, emotions can take over and you
Right.
can't see the solution, get somebody else who can help you, whether it's a
Yeah.
friend or a coach or a therapist or a
Mm-hmm.
religion, rabbi, priest, minister,
Right.
whatever, somebody who is outside of your situation who can help you find solutions.
Yeah. And one of the things that actually brings up a really important point of my thoughts on this too is one of the other things, and this was also a partial one of the reasons that I chose to move to the Dallas area when I did, was so I came from Portland, and if anybody knows all the chaos that was going on up there,
Portland,
it's
Oregon,
yes,
as opposed to
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Maine.
Yes, sorry, I always forget about that one because they're nice and quiet. The other one isn't.
They are, yes.
The one I lived in is not quiet, but I moved here for various different reasons. But one of the things is also is I had found a culture that also a group of people who lived by stronger core values. And so when I looked at the core values that I had, and they're not 100% alignment with mine, but they're very, very close. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for people that make me feel warm and fuzzy because that hasn't helped me in the back. There's a point for that. There's a point where you need somebody just to give you a hug. Nothing wrong with that. But they can't coddle you forever. And you need somebody who's going to take you to that next level. It's like, okay, this is where we are and we all believe in these things.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can find that culture, embrace that, get around that, even if it's not 100%, but that, even if they're 80% there,
Yeah.
that's 80% better than where you were without it. And
Right.
so that's where find people who embrace those same values that you do, because that's going to make a big difference too.
Yes, 100%, 1,000%. It's about finding your community.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I have so enjoyed this conversation. And I've never heard about Bushido before. Stoicism, yes, but
Mm-hmm.
Bushido, no. And so grateful for you for introducing that to me. I'm going to
Thank
dig
you.
into that a little bit more. And,
Thank you.
and yeah. And like you said, go down that rabbit hole. And before we go, two more questions.
Yes.
One, you are calm and grounded now. But what's the song you listen to when you need an extra boost of energy? What's your hype song?
Oh, okay. My hype song, I would say the main event as the name of the song, and it's by Jeremy Renner. And a lot of people don't realize. So Jeremy Renner, if you've heard of him, he's actually an actor. If you ever watched the Avenger movies, he is Hawkeye. So he's the Archer. That's actually how I got introduced to him. And I've actually followed him on a personal level and found out he was actually a musician. And I come from a music background too. So I followed a lot of his stuff. And he has some really amazing music. And that's one of the songs that he put out that's really powerful. So I recommend checking that song out, checking out him. He's just a cool guy. I mean, if there's one person that you could literally say is a true superhero, that follow his life, things that he's done, he really is amazing.
Cool. We'll have a link to that song in the show notes. And also in the show notes, I'd like to put how somebody can get in touch with you if they want to continue this conversation.
Yeah. Oh, simple. Easiest way to connect with me is connectwithely.com. And it is ELY, connectwithely.com. You can find all my social media sites. You can find a link to my podcast, which is the Meet Cool People podcast. All the fun stuff. I mean, there's even a spot if you want to just book a chat with me, because I do love meeting cool people. Book on my call or book on my calendar, have a call with me. I'm very open. I love just talking and having good conversations with people. And number one thing I'll ask is if you do book a call or connect with me or anything, please send me a message letting me know that you heard me on this show, because that is the biggest thing. It gives me the ability to know where you came from, because that's always important. But then, secondly, I can come back and say, "Hey, guess what, Lori? I got somebody cool I just talked to last week because they heard me on your show."
Yes, because there are a lot of cool people listening to the show.
I'm sure
For
there
real.
are,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ely, for joining me today on Fine is a Four-Letter Word.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Lots of fun.